So Jane Goodall, you are the subject of Brett Morgen's award-winning documentary, Jane. Um, I just want to start by asking, so few of us can know what it's like to have a movie made about our life, incorporating, hundreds of hours of footage of our life. So, what was your reaction when you first were approached about this project by Brett Morgen?
Well, I was actually approached by the National Geographic, and they were asked if I was interested in having a retrospective made with this footage that they kind of rediscovered in a vault. And I said, "Oh, come on, another movie about me and the chimps in those days. You've got to be joking." And anyway, I was very busy doing something or other. And they said, "No, Jane, honestly, the footage is different, and the approach that Brett Morgen will take will be different, and you don't have to be involved. It won't take up more than 3 hours of your time." So I said, "Oh well, in that case, okay then." That was my first response, and of course, it was 5 years later before there was anything.
Mhm. I think what's so great about the documentary is that we take for granted the discoveries that you made all those years ago, all of these things that are just facts about chimpanzees. But the movie takes us back to those moments where you were discovering this stuff for the very first time. So I wonder if you could just reflect a bit on your own sense of discovery and how maybe seeing this film brought back those memories for you.
Well, that movie is one of a good many that have been made. It's the only one that takes me right back into the skin of a 26-year-old Jane. And I actually could feel what it was like to be searching for the chimps and the disappointment when they were always running away, and the huge relief that Greybeard began to lose his fear. And then seeing, it was David Greybeard the first time actually, seeing him pick a grass stem and use it to fish for termites, and then pick a leafy twig and strip the leaves away, using and making tools, which at that time was thought to be unique to us. So all of those memories came back very vividly. But I think the most exciting ones were to be again with all those different individuals, far more than are named in the film, and who I knew like almost like my own family. And it was just very moving and very nostalgic to be among them again.
We knew so little about these animals back when you first started doing your research. Take us back to that moment. I mean, were you nervous or anxious about interacting with these animals out in their natural habitat for the very first time?
I was not nervous at all, and it just, I always felt that I was meant to be there, and I suppose I should have been nervous. They're much, much stronger than me. But of course, there were moments when I was, like when they first lost their fear, some of them treated me as though I was a predator, and they'd give this savage, rah, screaming call and shake branches, and one of them even hit my head once. And there was moments of, when you feel obviously scared, but they didn't last long, and I just knew I was meant to be there.
Mhm. Um, when you were watching this movie, I mean, was there a specific moment that you can remember from it that was particularly affecting for you, or brought back something that you hadn't thought about in decades? Or
Well, it was wonderful watching Flo and baby Flint, and of course I never forgot them, but seeing it unfolding like that was very special. And then there were the awfully sad moments when Flint died of grief after losing his mother, and then the awful, awful time of the polio epidemic, and the shocking time of the what I called the 4-year war, when the one community annihilated the other. So beautiful, gentle moments following mothers and babies, and seeing the grooming and the play, and then on the other hand, the sad and the shocking behavior as well. It was all there. It's all in that movie.
you mentioned the one who died of grief, and I think that for us as humans, I think we're just now starting to realize, how much, how alike we are to these animals, not just to chimpanzees, but to all sorts of animals. And hopefully the ways that we're treating them have improved. Do you think that the ways that we treat animals has improved since the time you started doing this research, or do we still have a very long way to go?
Well, certainly the way animals are treated in zoos has improved. We're beginning to see the end of exotic animals as pets and in entertainment. We have so far to go when it comes to factory farms. The way we treat the animals that are then eaten is so disgraceful, so shocking. It makes you want to give up on humanity altogether if you go into an abattoir or into one of these intensive farms. But nevertheless, the awareness is growing. There are more vegetarians, more vegans, because people are beginning to become aware. But yeah, we have a long way to go.
Yeah, I remember growing up as a child and eating meat every single day and not even really thinking about it. But you do, once you understand the sentient nature of these animals, it becomes a lot harder for you to cook a hamburger every single day. In terms of the environment, you've devoted your life to conservation. And as a young man, I worry about the state of our planet and what kind of world, not just that I'm going to be living in the next few decades, but theoretically any children or grandchildren I might have. Do you think there's hope for the future of this planet, or does it dismay you when you see the kind of environmental policies that certain individuals are putting forward?
Well, it's very dismaying. It's more than that. It's disgraceful and shocking. And some legislation in the United States, some of it since Roosevelt, and now it's just being overturned. They're attacking the Endangered Species Act. They're opening up hunting to species like wolves and grizzlies that have only just begun to make a comeback. And all these things are shocking. And this is why I spend so much of my time working with youth. And the Jane Goodall Institute has a program, Roots and Shoots, which began in '91. It's now in about 80 countries. It's kindergarten, university, everything in between. And the young people choose themselves projects to make things better for people, animals, environment. And there's the positive side of it. But these young people also have to be given hope, just like you do. And if people lose hope, so when people say, what can I do? I think the main message of Roots and Shoots is that every single one of us makes some impact every single day. And even though it may seem a small choice to turn off lights or what you eat, buy, wear, when there's billions of people making ethical choices, you start to see a better kind of world.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. For those of us who are working on just an individual level, what are some of the things that we can do in just ourselves in terms of lessening our carbon imprint?
Well, to think about it, to make conscious choices, to think about the consequences of those choices that we make. How did what we buy, was it harmful to the environment? Is it cheap because of child slave labor? Did it cause cruelty and suffering to animals? All of these kinds of things. Instead of making decisions, how will this decision affect people generations ahead? We're now saying, how will it affect me now, me and my family now? How will it affect the next shareholders meeting? How will it affect my next political campaign? So we're thinking in the present, and we're in this materialistic society in the Western world. So we have to combat one unsustainable lifestyle of all of us. I mean, I know mine is. I try very hard. I think about the size of my ecological footprint. I think about not wasting food. I think, I hardly ever go shopping. All those kind of things. But so we have to do something about the unsustainable way of living that we've fallen into through this materialistic lifestyle. And we have to do something about poverty. Because if you're really poor, you cut down the last trees because you're desperate to grow food or make charcoal, money from charcoal. If you're in an urban area, you buy the cheapest food. You can't afford to ask if it harmed the environment. You buy it because you must. So thirdly, we've got to do something about population growth.
Right.
This planet, we have finite resources on this planet, and we're using them up as though they're infinite.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the ways in which you have been a pioneer throughout your entire life, when you began working with these chimps, you were a young woman going off and starting a career at a time when women were, just supposed to stay at home and raise a family. So can you talk about being a woman at that time and getting into, this kind of adventurous line of work that I'm assuming was just thought to be a man's line of work?
It was. I was laughed at. Jane, dream about something you can achieve. That's when I was 10. That's when I first talked about going to Africa. But fortunately, I had an incredibly amazing, supportive mother. And instead of laughing at me, she said, "Well, you're going to have to work awfully hard and you're going to have to take advantage of opportunity, but don't give up." And I attribute so much of what I've done to the fact that she supported my love of animals. She didn't get mad at me when I took earthworms to bed. She said it looked as though I was trying to work out how they walked without legs. And so I never dreamt of having a career, becoming a scientist. And in those days, women, you could be a secretary, you could be a flight attendant, air hostess it was back then. But basically women thought that, they'd get married and have a family. And the man thought he would have to be the breadwinner. So that helped when you were out in the bush, not to be worrying about having to become a breadwinner. It was beneficial for me once I got there. And Leakey wanted a woman, but Leakey felt women made better observers.
Yes. While things have certainly gotten better, there's still a long way we have to go in terms of the way that women are treated in the workplace and the kinds of jobs that are offered to women. What would you say to any young woman growing up today who wants to, get out there and do a seemingly impossible task?
I would simply say what my mother said to me, you're going to have to work hard, take advantage of opportunity, don't give up, and also don't go straight there. I didn't. We had no money for university. I did a secretarial course. I got a job in Oxford, then I got a job in London. And then the opportunity came with a letter from a school friend to go out to Kenya. And then, thank God, I did that secretarial course, because when I met Louis Leakey, he needed a secretary. So I didn't straight away attain my dreams. And in order to get there, I had to work as a waitress to save up the money for the fare. It was very hard work. So I think if young people realize that even if they have to first get some boring old job, do something they don't want to do something to please their parents, they still will have the opportunity to change if the right moment comes. Not to forget the dream.
Yeah. Seeing the reaction to this film by critics and audiences and awards groups as well, being so overwhelmingly positive, what does that mean for you? Not just in terms of, obviously people are watching a movie about yourself, but I think that, a lot of people are coming to this movie and maybe being inspired to do something to help the environment, do something to help with animals or to chase their dreams. What does that mean for you?
Well, it's very important because it's helping me deliver the message that I'm out there giving 300 days a year all around the world. And this movie is definitely inspiring people, makes people cry. And it is inspiring them to realize how beautiful nature is, how wonderful the natural world, how worthwhile it is to save it before it's too late. And
Well,
it's
Jane Good.
inspiring women. I mean, girls, they just come up and say, well, you've really given me hope, and I now I will fight for my dreams. And people say, I'm going to do my bit.
Well, Jane Goodall, thank you so much for your time and for your lifetime of work. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.